Hello and welcome to the Snowflake Spotlight. I'm your host, Caveman Only, and this is a podcast series where I interview one unique Ironman in the old school RuneScape community each episode, diving deep to examine the intricacies of their unique Ironman account. As always, any good podcast has a supporting sponsor, and I'm happy to continue my support for OSRS bestinslot.com. OSRS bestinslot.com is a growing platform for all things PVM or gear related, especially if you're a noob, but even for a RuneScape veteran. This website contains tons of useful information on how you should gear for every boss in the game, and is especially designed to make you feel even guiltier when you die at Zulrah for the 27th time, even after changing your gear setup. As a disclaimer, this is a tool to inform you on how to be like the best, not on how to be the best. This site is constantly improving and adapting information to be up to date with every new piece of content that is pushed into the live game. Speaking of improvement, the developer is working closely with another member of the RuneScape community on an entire website overhaul that will include even more information in an even prettier format. It won't change how bad you are at the game, but it'll look really nice. So head on over to osrsbestinslot.com and check it out for yourself. Or, if you forget what the website is 5 minutes after listening to this, just Google OSRS gear and that'll work too. Now that the paid portion of this broadcast is over, let's get into the juicy stuff. For today's episode, I have with me the new king of old school RuneScape YouTube, Mr. Settled and his Mauritania locked Ultimate Ironman, swampletics. Settled, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely, dude. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
How's the weather in Mauritania today?
Well, honestly, it could be better. It's not the greatest. Pretty high humidity these days, but other than that, we're doing all right.
That's great, man. That's great to hear. Hey, well, again, thank you so much for being here. I know you are a very busy man these days. You are the talk of the town. Well, hey, let's dive right in. Why don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's go ahead and start with a bit of background info. The basics. So, talk to us about when you first started playing RuneScape.
So it was a beautiful year. It was 2005. I was 5 years old actually when I started playing.
Wow.
And yeah, a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but it's
Seriously,
true.
that's very young.
I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow this game just really appealed to me. My brother introduced me to it.
Okay.
And well, here we still are today, 2019. So
That seems to be the ongoing story with basically everybody.
yeah.
That I don't know about finding the game at 5 years old, but I started playing I think when I was 12. So you've actually, even though you are younger than me, you've been playing RuneScape for longer than I have, which is kind of weird for me to wrap my head around. But
It's so weird because it's like it's been in my life for like a majority of my life. It's I don't know, it's crazy. But yeah,
that is
humble beginnings.
unreal. Okay, so wow, you've been playing since 2005.
Mhm.
Okay, and then now what about old school RuneScape? So have you played since release, or how did that go for you?
I joined about a month after the 2013 release in February. I started like end of March, I believe. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty much, pretty close to release. Yeah.
Okay, and were you part of the crew that played basically up to EOC's release, and then you weren't satisfied with that?
Mhm.
Is that how that
Yeah,
went?
definitely. I played all the way up until the update, and then just quit right then and there.
Yeah, I'm in that same camp, and well, here we both are. Spoiler alert. And it seems to be going pretty well for
It's
both of us
going
here.
well. It's going very well.
So,
Yeah.
man, I cannot wait to talk about that. We'll get to modern times and how you're dealing with that later on in the interview. But
Mhm.
let's stick to the basics at the beginning here. So, this is something that I believe I've heard you talk about a little bit in the past, both on your stream and also I think in another podcast. But talk to me about how you came to call yourself Settled.
Oh God.
I like
Okay,
this story.
so it's pretty great for some people. So when I did, play back in 2012 and all that, I was a young 12-year-old boy, and even in old school as well, I pretty much only enjoyed PKing. I had a Zerker and I just did a lot of Edgeville PKing, and
Hmm.
seeing everyone with this one word name, those OG names was such an
Classic.
incredibly cool thing to me. Yeah. So I decided, all right, I want one of these names. And since I was so into PKing and that's all I really enjoyed, I wanted a name that had something to do with PKing. So, me being the slightly toxic 12-year-old, right? I really enjoyed the word sit, you know?
Yeah.
When people said that when, like you died in a fight or the other way around, vice versa. And settle was a synonym for the word sit. So the name was free, or settle wasn't, I believe, but settled was.
Mhm.
And that is the story. So yeah.
I absolutely love that story. Just the absolute epitome of the 12 by the way meme right there.
Yeah, truly, actually, yeah.
But I found that, so I heard that story for the first time somewhat recently, and I wanted to reiterate that for the listeners. But I find it fascinating that you were so into PvP
Mhm.
when you were younger in the game. Do you do any kind of PvP anymore?
It's definitely a stark contrast from what I'm interested in these days, but I still do a lot of PvP, but I only really do PvP when tourney worlds are out. I'm an addict when tourney worlds are around, or in this case, unrestricted worlds recently.
Really?
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I do hop on every now and then. Definitely not as much as I used to, but
Mhm.
I do really enjoy Bridding, so I do
I
hop
find
on
that
when I get the
fascinating
chance.
because to me
Hmm.
it's like the PvP lifestyle and community versus like the ultimate Iron Man community and lifestyle and playstyle. To me, they seem like two things that don't really mix. But
Yeah, very stark contrast. Yeah.
yeah, it's like both dead game modes, and you're a fan of both.
But yeah, I mean, I've just grown to love literally every single part of the
Mhm.
game, whether it be PvP, PVM, skilling, whatever. So
Well,
yeah,
hey,
it's great.
that's awesome, man. Now talk to me about the name swampletics, the new Mauritania locked Ultimate Iron Man. How'd you come up with that name?
All right, so it's not swamp lettuce, it's not swamp legs, right? A
Okay.
lot of people seem to think that. I get comments every single video that still don't know what the actual name means, or even if it's like actually swampletics. But what the inspiration behind this was the whole like ironically calling yourself like an athlete, like
Uh
a
huh.
RuneScape like or a gaming athlete, and I combine that with the word swamp, so athletics, and then the end of athletics at the end of swamp. So I'm an athlete of the swamp, basically, is the meaning behind it.
100% accurate. I
Yeah,
mean, I think we've all seen the episode with you jumping the bridge for that agility training. I mean,
exactly.
that
That's what I'm
that seems
talking
pretty
about, man.
athletic to me, man. So,
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying, man.
yeah, very appropriate. I dig it, and I think that basically everyone else does as well. It's very catchy.
Hmm.
So, okay, I'd say that you're, relatively speaking, you're pretty new to the Snowflake Iron Man community because obviously you just
Hmm.
spent time maxing your Ultimate Iron Man.
Right.
So, of all of the available regions in the game, what compelled you to pick Mauritania of all places? Because I know for me personally, probably one of my least favorite regions in the entire game.
Right. Okay.
Aside from maybe the Elven Lands, because all of the traps
Hmm.
and it's like impossible to
Okay. Yeah,
navigate.
I cannot stand the Elven Lands as well.
Yeah, the Tehran and only
Yeah.
Ultimate Iron Man guy, Turtletail,
Yeah.
that started up
Sorry,
recently. Like
Turtletail, but I
more,
cannot stand the
yeah.
Elven Lands.
I mean, more power to you, man. But wow. But Mauritania would be number two for me. So talk to me
Mhm.
of all of the regions. Why Mauritania?
Okay, so I touched on this very briefly in my first ever episode. The couple things that I wanted before going into the challenge was, first of all, there was no ultimate doing Mauritania yet, so that
Right.
was a big thumbs up there. And at the same time, I weighed all my options, obviously, before doing this because I wanted to pick the perfect area. And it was kind of like a process of elimination. I
Okay.
looked at desert, but I saw, well, there's not really much end game content. And I think for me, probably the most important thing in a Snowflake account is having that like final thing to strive for. So
Oh,
TOB
of
in
course.
Mauritania or Barrows, etc. So I had a really good end game goal. Desert, not so much. So the second area that I weighed was Zaya. And as
Hmm.
much as I liked Zaya, it is a continent, and I
Right.
just didn't feel like it was restricted enough, if that makes sense. I thought there was a lot to do, even too much to do, and I wanted to feel a real sense of restriction. So
Sure.
Mauritania just, I don't know, it seemed like the perfect area. No one had done it yet as an ultimate, so here we are.
Yeah. I mean, now as someone who's been doing this for almost 2 years now, when I first started doing this, when I first started playing Caveman, I thought it would be unheard of to not only play a Snowflake, an area restricted account, but on top of that being an ultimate Iron Man. I mean, I suppose it just makes sense for you because you just finished maxing an ultimate Iron Man. But
Yeah.
what I mean, uh was there any point in the process of making this account where you considered just being a regular Iron Man, or was it ultimate Iron Man 100% all the way?
So one thing about this game that it's kind of stayed constant for the past like 3 or 4 years is I really love the Ultimate Iron Man game mode.
Hmm.
Obviously, I maxed an account on it, and I wanted to. What part of the reason was just I wanted to continue on the game mode that I love and has been a part of my channel for such a long time.
Sure.
But also, I think a big thing for me is I love ridiculously hard challenges,
Hmm.
and I kind of contemplated some other really difficult challenges that we'll probably get into later. And I don't know, I just wanted it to be as difficult as possible, but also still have fun. And since I was so familiar with the game mode, it just seemed like the best choice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I figured that again would probably feel pretty natural for you, considering you just maxed an ultimate, and now, as the intro we all know and love, you're trying to up the ante, and this time you can't
Exactly,
leave
yeah.
Mauritania. So hey, it just seems natural. Now,
And another thing, sorry to
sure,
interrupt, but I've always wanted to play the game mode without looting bags, Zulrah, all that, like all that stuff that comes with being an Ultimate Iron Man in the regular,
right?
RuneScape world, with all these ways to store stuff. I wanted to really kind of feel like this vanilla experience with it. So,
Yeah, I mean that's a big point that I hadn't even considered, honestly.
mhm.
Is not having any of those. First word that's coming to my mind is exploits, which I guess you could call them
Right,
that, but they're
yeah.
almost kind of features of the game mode these days.
Hmm.
Speaking of that topic, is there anything in Mauritania that technically you could use as storage, but you might decide not to for that same
Well, I
reason?
could, yeah, 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 definitely. I could use the Theater of Blood storage,
Right.
but that is, it does cost 100K, obviously. I don't know if I want to use it. That's the thing is like I could have used it for. I'm trying to think what I could have used it for. Oh, for crafting training, for example. I could
Right.
have died at the theater and then I would have had, 28 slots to craft with.
Sure.
But I kind of just I don't know if I want to do that at all. And even during my Trey's Daith fight, I knew about the food stalling mechanic, dying so you have an inventory of food on the ground and coming back,
Right.
but I just wanted to stay away from that as much as possible. I wanted to keep it vanilla.
Well, hey, I mean, mad respect for that because I think that a lot of people, especially people who play the Ultimate Iron Man game mode and who have progressed the furthest, I think a lot of Ultimates are kind of starting to see the devaluation of the game mode, especially with
Mhm.
in recent times where they made the quote unquote quality of life change, where you could essentially note unnoted
Right.
potions
Yeah.
at the Grand Exchange. Um, so I mean, I just think it makes a lot of sense, and props to you for having some RuneScape integrity, if you will, and staying away from that, because I think that that will be you know I don't think Ultimate Iron Man mode was ever really intended to be about how many
No.
ways you could
Yeah.
abuse the mechanics to progress without a
Absolutely
bank.
not.
So
It is taking a turn for the worst, in my opinion, but there's just nothing you can really do about it.
sure. Now, would you say that that had anything to do with your inspiration or motivation for wanting to create this swampletics account?
I'd say so. I'd say it definitely had a part. I don't know if it was like a major contributor, but it definitely had some sort of impact because um, I know a lot of the like new Ultimate players see all these changes and welcome them with open arms, but a lot of the people who have played the mode since the beginning really understand what it used to be and what it is now with everything that has come in. And that I don't know. I still love the game mode. Absolutely, adore it, but it's definitely gotten a lot easier and devalued over time. I don't mean to sound like a I don't know, someone who just game mode, but
Right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that pretty much everyone could agree that over time the game is getting easier and kind of starting to cater towards the lowest common
Mhm.
denominator. And I think that that's part of the reason that we've seen such a big surge in the Snowflake Iron Man community lately is that you get to basically pick your own difficulty. And you
Mhm.
get to restrict yourself, and you get to choose personally, how to play the game, and without having to, be involved with the rest of the community exactly. Um,
Yeah.
we'll touch on that a bit later.
Mhm.
If you said that that was a small part in motivating you to create swampletics, what was the biggest motivating factor for you to create this account?
I think probably touching on what you just said, you see, I've been wanting to, okay, I'm gonna make a reference here, but I've been wanting to up the ante for quite a while now. Okay.
Sure, sure.
Uh, yeah, so I mean, I've touched on making area restricted accounts in 2017. I've
Mhm.
just been a huge fan of it. I was following Wildependant back when he was doing it. Um, I watched Easyscape's Desert Only, Karanja Only on Reddit. It's just kind of been, I don't know, it's been in the back of my mind for a very long time.
Mhm.
And after maxing, obviously, it was just the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's talk about some of the planning that went into your account. So,
Mhm.
if you don't mind sharing, how much planning went into your account before you started, prior to releasing the first
So
episode on YouTube?
yeah, I gotcha. So actual planning, I think I spent a couple days just trying to figure out how to get there with the lowest stats possible.
Mhm.
I didn't do much research into like how I'm gonna progress my account once I got into Mauritania. I wanted the first episode to kind of feel like I'm in here for the first time. I don't really know what I'm doing, and because I didn't. And you could see that by me not knowing what the shop will buy things for, or that
Right.
I struggle with GP and stuff like that. Because I just wanted to feel authentic in the first episode, and then once the second episode came around, that's when I really started the whole planning ahead, seeing how far I can go, where can I get more gear, etc. But probably like a couple days before coming into Mauritania, and other than that, it's kind of just been passive.
Okay. I mean, I think that that's a great way to approach it. I think that's a great way to approach it, is that not only were you trying to portray it as authentic, but I think that it was actually authentic.
Hmm.
That you obviously had a basic outline for what you wanted to do, which is, lock yourself in Mauritania and do that with as few restrictions or as little XP as possible.
Hmm.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I don't know how many people know this, but I know this because we had conversations prior to you releasing the video on Twitter, that in the early stages of you starting Swampletics, that you actually restarted the account before you published the first video. Is that correct?
Right. In fact, it wasn't just one restart. It was there was about 6 or 7 accounts in total.
Wow, I was not aware
Yeah.
it was that many.
Yeah, I mean
So,
it was I was thinking about this idea in I think it started in like late May, maybe even early June, but it wasn't relating to Swampletics at that point. It was a different idea
right.
that I was working on passively and trying to put out there.
And what idea was that?
Okay, so the idea was, and this was like, I don't know what I was thinking, honestly, but this like upping the ante thing was so burned into my brain that I wanted to take it so far that it kind of just became impossible. The idea was to make a hardcore Ironman. It was
Okay.
originally a hardcore, and then lock it to only Morton and the swamp around it. So no Canifis, no Port Phasmatis.
Wow.
Sleep didn't exist yet, and yeah, it was kind of ridiculous because the end goal of the series was to kill the Barrows brothers, right?
Mhm.
But I didn't have an altar to do so. I had no weapons when I was going in. I was all one stats. Everything was like level 30, 50. My plan was to flinch shades for the first 30 to 50 hours of the account for some basic stats. And Iron Dagger was the best in slot. It was just it was very unrealistic. And basically I just couldn't do it. Like I was beaten by my own challenge.
Well, I mean, I don't
And
blame you. That is
yeah.
that is probably the most restrictive idea I've ever heard for anything, maybe ever, aside from like the two
The
tiles
two
north of the
tiles, yeah.
northwest corner of Lumbridge Church, Mage Only Ultimate
Right.
Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, it was just I ended up dying on literally every single account because it
Wow.
was too difficult.
Wow. So now talk to me about the prerequisites for Swampletics. So what did you do exactly before you ended up in Mauritania? Obviously, you have to complete Priest in Peril And how did you go
Mhm.
about doing that with the Temple Guardian?
Okay, so with the Temple Guardian, I decided to get the 32 thieving for the Iron Dagger P,
Mhm.
and in fact, I did try to do this on those hardcores. I tried to get the Iron Dagger P, but every single time it took me like past 40 thieving.
Wow.
So thankfully, on the actual swampletics account, I got it in 32, which is the lowest possible level. And then I went to the Temple Guardian, just poisoned him. There's a 12.5% chance to poison, and I ended up getting like 20 total combat XP. You need to poison him, I believe,
Mhm.
twice to
Mhm.
kill him. So
Okay, so I mean, you're going into Mauritania with hardly any experience items whatsoever. Did
right,
you did
yeah,
you drop the poisoned iron dagger after the quest?
yes, I dropped every single
Hmm.
possible thing from my tutorial island inventory, the Iron Dagger, everything.
Okay, interesting. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about too, because I wasn't exactly sure about how you approach the Temple Guardian fight in Priest in Peril, because it's come to light in recent weeks that there is a no combat XP method for accounts doing like Venom tagging with another account.
Mhm.
And I believe it also works for Iron Man. Do you know anything about that?
I do, but the issue with that is the Temple Guardian was instance, so there was no possible way to do that. Only one
Oh, is
person
it
could be
really an
down there.
instance? I don't think I
Yeah,
realized that that was
so
instanced.
yeah, that is an instance room, so there was no way to get a second account down there because I
Oh.
was planning on doing that originally, but yeah,
Yeah, see that's what I was thinking too, was that maybe you could have done that to receive no combat
exactly.
XP.
No thieving XP. Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't realize initially that it was instance either. But hey, I mean,
Hmm.
getting in past that fight with only like 20 combat XP is
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
damn
definitely.
good. Nice. Okay. Well, now you're how many months into the account roughly?
Okay, well, I'd say probably 3.5, 4, closing in on 4 months.
Okay. Nice. So
Yep.
you are solidly into the grind now.
Right. Yeah,
Um
we are adjusted.
yeah, we are adjusted. Very nice. I don't want to give too many spoilers for people who may not have seen the series, and so I don't want to talk too much in detail about things that you've done already, in case people haven't
Yeah, no
seen,
worries.
especially latest videos.
Mhm.
But so talk to me about now you've been in Mauritania for the last 3.5, 4 months or so. What's the longest grind that you've endured so far?
Hmm. Longest grind. Well, I'd say probably. I mean, this was an RNG related grind. Probably the
Mm-hmm.
Mithril Scimitar
Mm-hmm.
was the longest one so far. Uh, which took, I believe, like 41 hours in total. I mean, it was kind
Wow.
of brutal because I don't think it's even that rare of a drop.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to flinch skeletons because I was way too low of a level. I was way too stubborn to get my combat stats higher because I wanted the best weapon to train my combat stats with. So
Right, of
I mean, it
course.
was just like this stubborn process of trying to get this scimitar, and yeah, that I think that would be it. Obviously, negating the future temple trekking grind.
Right, of course. So, in terms of temple trekking, talk to us about what it is exactly that you're trying to achieve with all of the temple trekking.
Right. So, the plan with temple trekking is to get 85 Slayer, so I can kill abyssal demons and get the whip, which is pretty much the only thing that makes Theater of Blood an actual realistic, a realistic thing.
Sure.
And that is, I believe, going to be about like 650 hours for 85 Slayer, which honestly isn't that bad.
Hmm.
I think that's about 7K an hour or 6K an hour. But the nice part is that by the time I get 85 Slayer, assuming all of the XP tomes that you use from temple trekking on Slayer, assuming they're all equivalent chances because there are 7 possible skills that you could use the tomes on. By
Right.
the time I get 85 Slayer, I'll also have 85 agility, 85 mining, 85 fishing. Um, I'm kind of blanking on the skills right now, thieving, etc.
Right.
So I'll have 85 in all of those skills in those 650 hours.
That's honestly not even that bad.
Yeah,
Have
honestly, it's
have you confirmed at
underrated.
all whether or not each temple trekking XP tome is an equal chance, or is that just something that you're kind of just inferring?
By my estimates, they are.
Mhm.
I have not found definitive proof, but I'm like 90% sure they are, yeah.
Okay. How many treks have you done as of this interview today? Do you know?
As of this interview, I'd say probably about 1,500,
Wow,
maybe 2,000.
1,500?
Yeah,
Holy
something like
cow.
that.
I have literally done maybe 3 temple treks in my entire, like, 12-year RuneScape career.
You and probably everyone else,
Probably
honestly.
everyone else.
Yeah.
Had you done much temple trekking on your other main ultimate before swampletics?
I did like maybe 100 or so because actually for ultimates, surprisingly enough, it is just about equal to the herb lore meta. Temple trekking is
Okay.
when you use the herb reward, it comes out to about like 14 or 15k herb lore XP an hour, which is pretty close to the meta, or at least it used to be. I think master farmers are now, but I did do some for herb lore XP back in the day just to test. But other than that, no, not really.
Okay. So we talked about the whip grind and how that's probably going to be one of your longest grinds, at least leading up to the Theater of Blood.
Hmm.
What about the most idiotic grind that you've had to do because of your restrictions? Not necessarily the slowest grind per se, but something that literally no one else in the game would have an excuse to do, or have an excuse to train in this way, but you've had to endure it because that's what happens when you sign up for a Mauritania locked Ultimate Ironman.
Right. So I think easily this one would go to the Grotto Bridge,
Ah,
very
yes.
very easily. Which for
Yes.
the people who don't know, I think at one agility it's about a 5% chance to successfully cross. You get 15 XP on a success, 2 XP on a failure, and you can get hit anywhere from a 1 to 7 on a failure. So
Wow.
you need a lot of food to do so, and it's not that fast XP.
So, how many levels did you have to do that for, and how long did that take you?
Uh, I did it from 1 to 25 agility,
Okay.
which after that you unlock werewolf agility course, or skull ball rather.
Right, right.
And I think in total probably about probably close to 20 hours, I want to say, on the Grotto Bridge.
Wow.
It got a
20.
lot faster, but yeah, it was something close to that.
Wow, 20 hours for 25 agility. That is just that's like absolute madness. I think that this just has to be one of my favorite things, not only about your account, but just about Snowflake accounts in general, is that it just it's the same thing I think that happened when Iron Man mode and Ultimate Iron Man mode came out for the first time in 2014,
Hmm.
that it just completely makes you see the game in a whole new light. And
Definitely.
I don't think that many people, I think many rational people, really find agility to be like the most fun skill to train in the game. And so to think about just doing 20 hours of agility, period, sounds awful. Um, but to do
Yeah.
20 hours of agility just for level 25, it's like it's just next level. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. It just blows my mind. I've been doing this for a while, and you've been doing this now for a while too. But what's one of the most rewarding things that you found so far playing a restricted Iron Man?
I mean, probably just any kind of upgrade is just incredible to get. I kind of made this comparison earlier, which I think you can probably agree with, but this game has for main accounts, for example, it's kind of really devolved into I want to get more money to buy this, and that's what makes me happy in this game. But when you can boil that down to such a simple level where, getting a steel warhammer makes you really happy because it means a lot to you for your account,
Mhm.
then why not do it? That's amazing. So probably just gear upgrades in general are probably the most satisfying thing.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And yeah, that I think I absolutely agree. That's one of the best things about playing a Snowflake Iron Man is that the most trivial, like inconsequential things to an average player are just some of the most rewarding things that I have ever experienced in the game, and probably you as well. Even after you had just come off of maxing an Ultimate Iron Man, which is already difficult.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just every little thing on a Snowflake Iron Man just it seems to mean so much more. And Yeah, just as the game has evolved over the last coming up on 6 years. As of this interview, old school RuneScape is just shy of 6 years old
Oh
now,
dang. Yeah, that is
which
true.
is hard to believe because it just feels
Yeah,
like yesterday that the game came out.
seriously.
But yeah, just as things have evolved and how the game has gotten a little bit easier, and I think we can all agree that it's not Jagex's strong suit in terms of balancing content for initial release. Um, I think that's led to a lot of just imbalances for the game economy as a normal player, and
Right.
just in terms of ease for Ironman. There seem to be a lot of updates that are kind of catering to this mode that ultimately make it easier and kind of ruin that sense of achievement when you get certain
Mhm.
things on an Ironman. But one of my favorite things about playing a Snowflake is that you don't have to worry about, at least for the most part, you don't have to worry about what Jagex is doing in terms of content releases and updates and changes, because for the most part, most of these things don't really affect us. So
Exactly. Yeah.
so you get to make the effort and reward system for yourself rather than having it be dictated by the game developers or by the community as a whole. Like,
Mhm.
you get to do that, and I think that's one of the most powerful things about doing this.
Right. Especially recently, in fact, I just completely relating to what you said. When all the Konar drop table controversy was happening and everyone was
Mhm.
getting these like stupid, ridiculously broken drops, and I'm just,
2500 Sarah brews.
yeah, and I'm just, over here sitting in Mauritania. I don't have to worry about that. I have to, worry about taking part in this stuff that would normally probably ruin the experience of Iron Man mode for me.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of, in this own bubble, and it's, I don't know, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's very attractive for a lot of people. In the last 6 months or so, the Snowflake community has just absolutely exploded with
Mhm.
people, and I think that more and more people are catching on. And in the past, I've kind of referred to this unique Iron Man thing as kind of, I don't know if it's exactly right to say, but it's almost kind of like anti-efficiency scape. Now, you can still do things in an efficient manner, but relatively speaking, to a normal account, what we're doing is incredibly inefficient,
Right.
um,
By a long shot.
by a long shot, of course. Um, but I just think that it's one of the most rewarding things to not have to worry about what's going on in the real world of
Mhm.
RuneScape, and just kind of do your own thing and not worry about it so much. And I guess it's convenient for us to say, but I guess for the community as a whole, can't really ignore those kinds of things. Um, anyway, not to digress too far, let's bring it back to swampletics now. In terms of other grinds and milestones, obviously as an Ultimate Iron Man in Mauritania, you don't have a whole lot of banking options, and obviously you're severely limited in terms of what you can carry in your inventory. So, what is
Mhm.
the worst prep needed for you to do any kind of task, whether it's a quest that you've completed, or temple trekking, or training a certain skill? Like, what's the worst prep you have to do for any given task?
I'd say probably the worst by far is Barrows. It sucks to prep for.
Okay, interesting.
So because the problem is that everything is spread so far apart, like altars and food sources, and
Right.
obviously when you have a bank you have all this in one place. So that is probably the worst, and combined with, not having a teleport pretty close to it. I have Shades of Morn, but obviously the 20-minute cooldown.
Hmm.
I'd say doing all this prep for bears is by far the worst prep for any kind of activity. Although I imagine Theater of Blood is going to be tenfold that. It's going to be
Naturally,
awful.
probably.
Yeah.
So what does your Barrows prep look like exactly?
So what I usually do is, now that I have the Draken's medallion, is I teleport to TOB and I go into the Theater of Blood instance, and then I resign immediately, so that way all my stats are regened. And this will give me full run. And what I've been doing recently for food is I do temple trekking, and I claim the raw lobster reward. So I teleport back to TOB again because it's like a few steps closer to the bank. There's a bank there. Unnote all the raw lobsters, and then run north to the town Sleep, and there's a range there, and I cook all the lobsters there. And after that, I
Wow.
teleport back to TOB again because I lost all my run energy running over there. So I have to go back into the theater, regen
Oh
my
my
run
goodness.
again, and then do the Shades of Morton Telly to Barrows. So, and sometimes you have to cook 2 trips because I mean, you burn a lot of lobsters. So,
Right, naturally. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. That is absolutely wild. I mean, I guess it makes sense though why you put so much emphasis on completing a Taste of Hope for the Draken's Medallion.
hmm Yeah,
Now,
without that, I can't even imagine.
yeah, so obviously that's huge for you because it's basically like sort of equivalent to I guess like the Clan Wars portal where you can just kind of enter,
Right.
immediately resign, and then exit, and all of your stats are restored, including your run energy.
hmm
Now,
Yep.
another thing that I hadn't even really thought of until we started talking a little bit more about Theater of Blood just now. Do you have any plan to leech Theater of Blood in order to gain some points to try and trade in for potions? Is that something that you plan on doing anytime soon?
I think this goes along with earlier wanting to keep the experience vanilla and kind of keep the integrity intact as much as possible. I will
Sure.
only do it if I can get um, similar stat people to me, or if I can solo the first 2 bosses myself. That is the only way I'm going to be farming any kind of bruise restores or staminas.
Wow.
Other than
Okay.
that,
Yeah, because that was another thing that is. I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised that Jagex has decided not to patch this because for Iron Man, it seems like another piece of
it's
content that's
yeah.
a little broken.
It is
Um.
very broken because I mean you can just get someone to leech and that whole this like huge obstacle of getting 10 staminas for the pool,
Right.
which had the 72 or 72 herbal requirement,
Hmm.
is just completely bypassed these days by that.
Right, exactly. I've had a lot of questions about that myself. I'm getting ready to come up to a Chambers of Xeric grind here in the next probably month or so,
hmm
and people are asking me if I plan on doing TOB leeching before I do Chambers in order to get some staminas so I can eventually solo. Because right now the only
Right.
way I can get staminas is by trading in a clean Torstol for the Jekyll random. But
Yeah, no amylase, right.
yeah, but again, I'm not really a big fan of that because it's just I don't know, kind of broken and
hmm
um I don't know, I'm just not a fan. And there's other ways around that, so I just rather not. So yeah, props to you for not doing that.
Yeah, I'd say if
Um
there's another way around, you should always try to make the effort for it, honestly.
yeah, exactly. And actually, speaking of that particular topic, talk to me about the Ghosts Ahoy quest
Right. The
because it's obviously a Mauritania based quest, but to my understanding, you have decided not to do that quest, right?
Yes, I have decided not to. I figured for the longevity of the series, having as much integrity as possible is going to make it more appealing. And I also just, I don't know, I didn't want to cheat myself out of a challenge either. I
Mhm.
feel like it's just not necessary, like it is literally only a time save. Um, and if it's not necessary to do for Mauritania content, then there is no reason to do it. Granted, I still get a lot of people that are like angry with me for not doing it, which,
Right.
whatever. I mean, it's my suffering, not yours, so I don't really see the big deal, but
True.
I don't know. I enjoy the account more when it's more pure and it has more integrity, so why I
Sure.
did it.
Now, for that particular quest, what would be the trade off? So, what would you have to do that would make you essentially have to make an exception to your rules? And then what would be the reward from completing the quest?
So the exceptions would have to be you need to get silk, which I can obtain in Mauritania. You need to get that from like Al Kharid or wherever.
Sure.
And then you need to get the dyes for the quest. So I'd have to make like 3 sets of 3 colored different dyes, and then that is to like color the like flag on the ship during the quest. So you can't. Originally, a lot of people thought you couldn't get a bucket of milk, but you can actually get it out of your POH if
Right.
you made that exception. So that's I don't know. When we're talking about multiple items that I have to get, that also didn't really appeal to me. But the reward for doing the quest would be the Ecto file, which is a very very central teleport when it comes to like Port Phasmatis and Canifis, and you also get free access to the city. Which currently, as an ultimate, I do have the drawback of needing Ecto tokens on me at all times to enter that city. So that's another
Right.
thing that it would improve quality of life wise.
Right. So, but again, from my understanding, completing Ghost Ahoy would really only be quality of life because, again, you get the Ecto file, But that's just kind of a convenience thing that gives you greater access and faster access to Port Phasmatis, and then the free entry without ecto tokens.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, there
so
is no unlock. It's all just quality of life.
right, and so that's why you've chosen not to do that quest, because all it would really serve to do is to just make things a little bit more convenient for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. And I know that you and I had discussions on Twitter before you released the series on YouTube about that exact topic. And talk to me about your thoughts on, because you've just mentioned that you have a lot of people, again, kind of requesting or wondering why you're not doing this quest. So talk to me about what role your community and your followers on YouTube and Twitch play in how you choose to progress your account, if they have any role at all. So is this something that you would, or that you did poll to your audience to see what they thought, or are you basically just calling the shots yourself?
So I am mainly just calling the shots myself. I did actually poll it, but how I addressed the question was out of curiosity, even though I think I already know the answer because I did. Everyone's gonna, or most people would vote yes.
Okay, so you're
And
qualifying it with, you already know the answer, but you just want to get a feel.
yes, yeah, I just wanted to get a feel. And out of 32,000 votes, we had 87% yes, which was pretty much expected that most people wanted me to get it. Um, but mainly what I was looking for here are the comments, people's like explanations for me wanting to get it
Sure.
or not wanting to get it. And although most of them were yes, I believe that the no comments, maybe this was completely biased, but the no comments just really spoke to me, I guess.
Hmm.
And
What did some of those say? Can you recall off the top of your head?
off the top of my head, not to the most accurate degree, but basically, that over time, it's going to be better if I just kind of stick to this and make the challenge as pure as possible. I think a lot of people just kind of are short-sighted with that stuff, where it's like, hey, we can get more content now, but at the end of the day, what is the point of doing this challenge if you're not going to try your best to stay to those rules?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And again, I know that we talked about this on Twitter before all of this went down, but I would have to say that I'm with the minority on that vote, that I would have voted no for you to do that, for those exact reasons.
Hmm.
And I've had a lot of experience with that with my account. Um, Early on when I first started, initially my end goal was just to kill Kalphite Queen one time.
Hmm.
Had no idea that I would eventually be planning to raid and things like that.
Right.
Um, but there were a few times early on in my account where I decided to do a poll for my viewers to ask whether or not I should do X piece of content that just came out. And what I noticed after doing probably 3 or 4 of those polls is that generally your audience is always going to vote in favor of adding new
Yeah.
content.
Hmm.
And I realized pretty quickly that if I wanted to maintain the integrity of what I was doing and the challenges I was putting forth for myself, that I had to make the calls myself.
Hmm.
And but that's just kind of I think just a general flaw of democracy, and I think we see that um, in our own polling system in the game,
Right.
that
Definitely. Yeah.
most people are going to vote out of their own self-interest and vote for more content rather than less. Um, but basically, again, with their own self-interest in mind, and not necessarily the longevity or the integrity of the game over the long haul. I think that's a huge
Yeah.
flaw in our polling system, but that's just kind of a byproduct of democratic polling. Winston Churchill said it best, that the best argument against democracy is a 5-minute conversation with the average voter.
Right. Yeah.
that that it's just a natural thing to do, is to vote out of self-interest. So
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
say props to you for wanting to stick to your guns, and even though an overwhelming majority of your viewers wanted you to do this quest, I think that you, obviously as the content creator, know what's best for your account and for the longevity and to preserve the difficulty. And so I think that you made the right call in choosing not to do that, and
Thank you. Yeah.
I hope that pays off in the future for you.
Hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. One that's one of my favorites to talk about with any Snowflake account, and that is the subject of dead content. Absolutely love it. I know Mauritania is full of it.
Right.
Um, Talk to me about the most obscure piece of content you found in Mauritania.
So before we get into content, I recently discovered something that was just, I don't know, it was really really cool to me because
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people would normally glance over this, but there is a cheese spawn in the town of Sleep, right?
Okay.
And it's crazy how much one piece of cheese can change a lot, right? But with the piece of cheese, hobgoblins drop tomato seeds as well. You can make pineapple pizzas, which are, a gigantic
Wow. No way.
upgrade in food. I mean, that is a 22 HP healing food
Yeah.
on par with the best. So just, little things like that, how there was no way to get cheese beforehand, but this one little random cheese spawn that they decided to put in the dungeon of sleep is is kind of, I don't know, it's game changing in a way.
that is
So yeah.
that is absolutely wild. I didn't know about that before.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Wow. I think that certainly qualifies as just obscure and unknown. Because again, there are other Mauritania only accounts or other like swamp only accounts that have existed for a while, but I have never heard that piece of information before. And
Yeah,
I just think that's mind blowing that that one random cheese spawn now makes you able to make pineapple pizzas.
right. Yeah, it's great.
Wow, that is unreal. All right, so in terms of other dead content, I mean, when I say that phrase, I mean to me, literally all of Mauritania is dead content, like
Yeah.
literally and metaphorically. But so talk to me about some of the dead content there. What is your favorite piece of dead content?
I'd say probably the entirety of Tarn's Lair. I mean, it is just the most neglected thing. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure someone was incredibly intoxicated when they made the drop tables for it. It is just the most horribly thought of thing when you think about the drop tables. I mean, you've got like rune nails, bowls of water. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's unreal how weird this drop table is compared to anything in the game. But I love it so much for that because some of the obscurities really come in handy in some situations where, normally no one cares about that drop table. No one has, probably 99% of people have never killed a zombie in that place.
Mhm.
And it turns out to be great, such as the pestle and mortar drop from the level 81 to 100 zombies,
Right.
which let me make blamish oil for herblore XP. So I mean, stuff like that is just, Tarn's Lair is a gold mine, seriously.
Yeah. Now, at least to me, it seems like it's a bit of a double-edged sword because obviously you have all of these very obscure drop tables of the creatures in Tarn's lair, and all of these crazy items like rune nails. Like, has anyone ever even like made rune nails before? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. There's no way someone would do that.
But I feel like it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you have these crazy drop tables. On the other hand, I feel like a lot of it is probably undocumented. So, what's your
Mhm.
experience with the documentation on the official wiki with some of these drop tables?
So I have done some work on the skeleton and zombie drop tables. One that I did most recently, which is, oh, this is gold. Okay, so there is a skeletal mage in Tarn's lair. It is one room before actually before Tarn himself, right?
Hmm.
And these mages on the wiki originally had only one drop on their table.
Okay, what
They
was
were
that?
listed as the ashes were a 100% drop from them, right?
Okay.
The only drop on their table was wrong. The only drop. So they actually drop bones 100% of the time, and they also have 55 other unique drops.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was literally zero things correct about that table.
That is mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's actually incredible how unexplored the content is, and I'm sure I still haven't found everything about it.
Yeah, probably not, but that just again, this is why I love this stuff. This is why I love unique Iron Man and Snowflake Iron Man, and particularly
Yeah.
swampletics because like how long has Mauritania been in the game? Do you have any idea when that was released?
Probably like 2004,
Yeah,
I want to
let's do
say.
let's do a quick wiki search. Let's see.
Priest in Peril OSRS.
Yeah, let's
Let's
see.
see. Yeah, 2004.
2004.
June 29th, 2004.
Wow. And here you are 15 years later almost mapping these drop tables for like the first time.
Yeah,
That's that
it's crazy.
it blows my mind. So, did you find anything useful on that drop table for that skeletal mage?
There are some interesting drops on that table. There's a rune scimitar. There's some adamant armor. So yeah, not so much for me, but it was just interesting to see them have a drop table at all when it was pretty much everyone in our like tight little community of Mauritania Ironman now, because we have like a couple people doing it now.
Right.
Everyone thought they just dropped nothing or ashes 100% of the time.
That's a big discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And even though for you at this stage in your account it's a little inconsequential because you already have some of these gear upgrades, still, as you said, for anyone trying to join and make a make a
Yeah,
Mauritania only Iron Man or Ultimate Iron Man,
right.
um, that's I just find it fascinating that content that old is that unexplored.
Yeah,
Um,
seriously. I mean, no one's even touched it. Is the funny part.
do you ever see anybody in Tarn's lair ever, like unironically killing things?
I've seen I've seen one person, but they were just going over to do the actual like mini quest, which is the only content that place pretty much serves to regular players. But that's the only time I've ever seen someone there.
Right. Okay. Now I think again, it's been a while since I've played a regular account, so I don't even know this information off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure that once you do that mini quest, you can teleport straight to Tarn's lair with a Slayer ring, can't you?
Correct. Yes.
But
And you
still,
can
nobody goes
even
there.
yeah, no one goes there. I mean, everyone skips Terror Dogs, which is
Yeah.
I don't know which Slayer Master like it stops assigning them. I think Neve
Hmm.
stops assigning them.
Hmm.
So, if you're a level 70, you're not going to go kill Terror Dogs. Those things are ridiculous. They drain your prayer. They're made for people who are like maxed, but
Hmm.
obviously you're not going to go there. They are horrible to kill. They have like perfect accuracy. It's ridiculous.
Wow. What Slayer level do Terror Dogs require? Do you know?
40.
40. And have you killed any
Yeah.
of those on swampletics?
I have killed one, and it took me like you can't tank them at all. They drain your prayer. So I mean,
Yeah.
I was sitting there basically chomping on food the entire time.
Hmm.
So after that one kill, I was out. Pretty much the only thing you can do is hide in a little corner and wait until they de-aggro, which takes about 10 minutes,
Hmm.
and then safe spot them with range. That's pretty much your only real option to kill them.
So the Terror Dogs, I mean, from what you've said, it doesn't sound like you've really invested a whole lot of time into killing them. So is there anything meaningful on the drop table for you at this point?
Not really. Maybe in like the previous section of my account, there is a granite helm on the drop table, which would be it would be my best in slot non-degradable helmet. But just Barrows is so much more superior to it that it's just
Not worth the
not
effort.
really worth exploring. Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever grinded for a well, maybe someone's grinded a granite helm for them. I wouldn't know. But yeah,
Probably not, but maybe. You never
most
know.
likely not.
Wow. So, what other dead content is there to speak of that you can think of off the top of your head that nobody really interacts with in Mauritania?
Hmm. I mean, excluding temple trekking, which is the obvious answer here because no one
Hmm.
touches it. But
Well, on the topic, let's stay with temple trekking for a moment. I know that
yeah,
you've spoken recently about you have a video coming out that'll go into detail about what exactly is involved with temple trekking and how you go about doing that. But is there anything that you can
right.
tell us now about that process and how exactly it works and how you've evolved to how your meta has evolved for temple trekking?
Hmm. Okay, so there's a couple intricate details to make it faster, but in general, the one event that absolutely sucks is the bog. And the bog event, for those who don't know, is you have, I believe it's I want to say 8 tile long puzzle,
Hmm.
where basically there are soft tiles and there are firm tiles. And you cut these sticks off a branch and you have to check each tile to make sure if it's firm or soft. And then there is a one set path that you have to get through this like bog maze from.
Okay.
And the average temple trek takes about maybe a minute and 20 seconds or so. And bogs can sometimes be up to 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
So you can do like 3 temple treks in the time of one bog event in this trek that you could get on by chance. So figuring that out is a very key part of optimizing temple trekking to eventually do this 85 Slayer grind.
Right.
It's not always 3 or 4 minutes. Sometimes you get lucky; it's a straight path. It'll take you like 20 seconds, but on average, it is a very long event. So what I tried to do is I had this theory that there are a set amount of paths, and
Oh,
what I did was I wanted to make a system where basically there are 10 possible tiles to start from. So I tried to mark every single tile 1 through 10 and then keep a log of my paths. So let's say the trek starts on path number 4, then I would go to my path number 4 in my spreadsheet and see, okay, these are all the possibilities for all the treks that start with path number 4. It is very complex, and I spent a lot of time on it.
mhm.
But the conclusion I came to was that they are procedurally generated, which means they are completely randomly generated. And although some paths may, be encountered every now and then, like they're duplicate paths, there's probably like 100 plus in total. So it was
Wow.
just
Okay.
all my work was put to waste,
That's honestly
basically.
kind of surprising to me because especially because this content is so old, I would have
Hmm.
predicted as you had that it was probably there was a set number, a fixed number
Exactly.
of possible paths, but for them to make something that's, closer to procedural generation where it's different every single time and there's not a
Hmm.
whole lot of predictability there. That's kind of surprising to me for especially content that's 15 years old.
Right. And I messaged Ash on Twitter, and although he had no idea, like he had absolutely no clue if there was a fixed number or if they were like interchangeable from both the starting locations. But he did tell me that there was someone who coded some like pretty complicated systems for them before, and that it is entirely possible that they are generated that way. So yeah, it was a huge waste of my time, unfortunately.
Well,
I
hey,
spent probably like
insert "you choose to limit yourself" phrase here, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I spent probably like 15 hours mapping this stuff for a
Mhm.
potential like 10 to 15% increase in speed on this thing,
Right.
and I couldn't even get that.
Wow. Okay. So again, having only done maybe 3 temple treks in my entire 12-year RuneScape history, you say that obviously the bog is the portion of the trek that can slow you down the most.
Mhm.
But you said that you don't always get that room, or that
Right.
that part of the trek. So how does that work? And if you get the bog, I take it that you have to complete it. You can't just like abandon that trek midway through and start over.
Right. So as a regular count, in fact, the meta for temple trekking for people who, or I guess for Ironman, because it used to be a really good way to get bowstring and pure essence.
Hmm.
And the meta was always just to, if you got a bog, you literally just teleported out to Berderat and you started over. It was not worth your time to complete it.
Right.
But for me, unfortunately, I don't have a teleport to Berderat, so my
Oh,
only
right.
option is to complete it or um, retreat. And if you retreat, you just get spawned roughly where you were on your path in the middle of the swamp, and you have to run to one of the locations again. So you basically have to complete it.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I was wondering about that. But that makes sense that, obviously your teleportation options are limited. I didn't realize the part that if you decided to retreat midway through, that it would just like plop you down in the swamp midway through wherever you happen to kind of
Hmm.
be.
Yep.
That's interesting. So, out of all of the dead content that exists in Mauritania, we haven't even really talked about Shades either. Shades of Morton. Would you consider that?
Right.
Would
Yeah.
you consider that dead?
Oh, absolutely. That is possibly close to as dead as content gets.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
So, yeah, Shades was revived a tiny bit in recent years because we did
Hmm.
get the Amulet of the Damned.
Right.
Before that, I mean, I don't think anyone's like ever done Shades, but the Amulet of the Damned did revive it. For my account in particular, it is a very, very good piece of content. It helped me get my gear for the Trey's Daith fight. There is a bunch of rune items. Once you get 65 fire making, you can get silver keys. You can get the Amulet of the Damned, which is equal to a glory. So there's a lot of stuff there that normally someone would just find, completely useless.
Hmm.
But for my account in particular, it's extremely useful.
Interesting. So, which piece of dead content out of this list do you think most deserves to be dead because it's just like terrible content?
Hmm. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I can pick. I kind of
There's too
like
much
all
bad
of it.
content. Oh, you kind of like all of it. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. It's kind of a situation where it's all kind of grown on me. Um, I guess if I had to pick, it would have to be temple trekking because just the bog alone is such a mentally draining task.
Hmm.
Uh, and one thing I failed to mention about the bog is when you uh, feel out a tile with your stick and it's soft, then your stick has like a 50% chance of sinking into the bog. And
Oh my God.
you could get like one tile away from being finished and you run out of sticks. So it just turns into a guessing game. And it's just, I don't know, it's the worst thing ever. So
But you like it.
otherwise, yeah, I mean, temple trekking as a concept is really cool. The bog sucks.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I would love to say that I will try temple trekking eventually, but honestly, I would probably just be lying to myself. So would you say that temple trekking is like the piece of dead content that's grown on you the most since playing swampletics?
I'd say so. Yeah, I do really enjoy it, especially the hard treks because they're actually really difficult. In fact,
What
I went into a hard trek.
what's the difference between an I guess an easy trek and a hard trek?
Right. So on easy treks, you can evade all encounters except for puzzles. So like the bog
Okay.
and this rope swing, you can evade all combat encounters. On a hard trek, you can't evade encounters no matter what. You have to kill every enemy.
Okay. And
So
what's the trade-off?
right. So the hard treks will give you a pretty. It'll be like a pretty big reward, right? But the scaling is just for some things, hard treks are meta for like ores, for example, or lobsters. But for other things, they're just completely useless. Like for XP tomes, a hard trek will take you like I don't know, let's say 8 or 9 minutes,
Wow.
and you'll get an XP tome that'll give you like 5,000 experience. But in that time, you could have just gotten like 10,000 XP from easy treks. So the reason why these hard treks are so difficult is because everything is scaled so ridiculously. I went into one of these hard treks and I very nearly died because I was flicking these snails that have range attacks, right? And I'm like, all right, cool, this is fine. And I miss one flick, right? One flick, my prayer's off for one literal tick, and I take 50 damage from the snails. They all hit me
50.
at the same time. Yes, a
Wow.
50. And obviously, this is really dangerous because temple trekking is not a safe death. If I die, all my stuff
Right.
is gone. So I'm very lucky that I was full HP, but it was like after that, I didn't even bother flicking. I just evaded the encounter. I was too scared to continue.
That's another part that I hadn't even really thought about is that temple trekking is instanced. And so if you die in there
Right.
as an
Yeah.
ultimate, like that's it.
Exactly. So I have like these 600 hours for this whip.
Mhm.
There is, there's a decent chance that because something could happen.
Right, right. Well, for your sake, I really hope that nothing happens because
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, 650 hours isn't really the worst in terms of a time frame for a grind, especially when you're getting all those other stats along with Slayer. But I mean, still, that is no small
Hmm.
sum of time to be lost due to a simple, misstep like that.
Definitely. And it goes with all this planning because I know a lot of people really want me to do barrows and get all this gear, but then I think about this temple trekking grind and I'm like, what if I just lose all this? Like I have 700 hours to potentially DC or,
Right.
something stupid happens where I just lose all of this progress that I've made. So I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see how I go about that, but
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that could be pretty game changing. I know that from what I've seen in the past, especially on Reddit, when a high level Ultimate Iron Man dies, either trying to fix their looting bag in the wilderness, or
mhm.
they do a double death when they forgot they had Zulrah storage or something. It could give them an opportunity to start over and do things that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise with a fresh inventory.
Mhm.
But I don't know, man. For your sake, I certainly hope that doesn't happen because it's one thing to lose your stuff on a regular Ultimate, but on a Mauritania locked Ultimate Iron Man, that does not sound very fun.
Right, yeah. It's not an ideal situation.
Man. All right, let's move on to the next subject here. Changes and updates to your account that could possibly impact the way that you play this account. One of the first things that I want to talk about, because I think it just sort of begs the question, do you think that you would be playing swampletics right now if it weren't for the Theater of Blood release?
That is a very good question. And I don't think I would, actually. I think I probably would have picked a different area because, as I mentioned previously, end game content, like that one end goal to go for, is so important to me that I don't think I would have done that. I probably would have chosen something else.
Yeah. Now, do you think that the reason you want a clear, big end goal like that is because you're a content creator, or do you think that you would want that regardless of whether you're making content or not?
I think I would want that regardless. I'm very big on striving for something, I guess. And
Hmm.
Theater of Blood is just, I don't know, it's the perfect thing. I think every good area locked kind of needs that one thing to really strive for because I mean, it kind of sets apart like if you lock yourself to Lumbridge, then you don't really have anything to strive for, I guess is what I mean here. You have to have this like path to kind of guide you on your way. And I think Theater of Blood is really shaping how this account is going because everything is passively working towards this one goal.
I agree with that 100%. Um, and that could just be because I think both you and I are very goal oriented and driven people in that way.
Hmm.
But I think that you have to have something like that to keep you going.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially if you're not a content creator and you don't have an entire community behind you, like cheering you on the entire way. You have to have that thing to go for, or else
Hmm.
you're just kind of in this limbo phase. And I don't know. I mean, perhaps some people do enjoy playing that way. One Snowflake account that comes to mind that I'll give a quick shout out to right now is another type of fellow underground Iron Man. He's taken a different twist on things. His username is Falador Mines, no spaces,
Huh.
and it's exactly what it sounds like. He only plays underground in the Falador mines. Um,
That is incredible.
it is incredible. Now, I like you. I don't know if you could pay me enough money to play that way because, again,
Yeah.
it's like you can mine at Motherlode, you can fix the struts, and you can kill dwarves, and like that's it.
Right. Dwarf
So
is your final boss,
right,
basically.
yeah. And
Yeah.
for me, there isn't enough end game content there to really want to strive to keep on. But this guy
Hmm.
has some serious dedication. I thought that it was going to be kind of a meme when it started. Honestly, if you're listening to this, sorry, but I'm honestly impressed with how he's kept on. He's got over 90 mining. He's gotten
Damn.
I believe over 80 smithing just repairing the struts in Motherlode
That is
mine.
incredible, actually. That's
So
really, really cool.
yeah, I mean, frankly, props to this guy for keeping on. But I think in general, he would be a bit of an exception. That without any like real end game, particularly PVM, because I think most people in the game would say that PVM is like one of the end things that they would strive to do.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, without a with a such a huge lack of end game PVM content, I definitely couldn't do that. So again, for anyone out there listening who's thinking about starting their own special Snowflake account, whether it's an area restriction or a stat restriction, I think, I agree with you 100% that I think it's really important to have that kind of one end goal to really
Yep.
strive for. So talk to me about how not only the Theater of Blood, but that entire Mauritania expansion, including the City of Sleep, talk to me about how that specifically impacted the trajectory of your account.
Well, I think actually with the introduction of sleep, the account also became much more playable because sleep is the only city with an anvil in Mauritania.
That's huge.
So that anvil allowed you to do multiple quests in the storyline where otherwise you wouldn't be able to unless you made the exception. But if we're talking, strictly restricted purity account, right? So that has definitely shaped the gameplay. We also, I think, probably the biggest thing in that entire town is the Chaos Druids because they added the church, and at the very top of the church, there are Chaos Druids and Chaos Druid Warriors. And they give a ton of different secondaries. They drop super defense potions, even. So they made a lot of stuff possible, I feel, that um, wasn't really there before. Granted, I believe you could also get the secondaries in different ways, but
Hmm.
Herblore training would have probably been a nightmare without them.
That's interesting. Again, that's another piece of content that, like, does anyone actually know that that's a thing, that there are chaos
Yeah,
druids
I've
and chaos druid warriors
literally
in sleep?
never ever seen someone there. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I feel like this entire little Mauritania Iron Man community that's popped up in the last few months really wouldn't be a thing if it weren't for Sleep and A Taste of Hope and the Theater of Blood. Um,
Mhm.
I think there was one guy, maybe two, who had started Mauritania accounts prior to the release of all of this, and frankly, they didn't seem to get very far because again, they kind of lacked end game content. Um, they because obviously the
Right.
theater wasn't there, and so there wasn't that end goal to really strive for. They couldn't really train smithing feasibly because they didn't have the anvil,
Mhm.
so they couldn't do a lot of the quests. Herb lore was a pain, as you know, um, prior to the Chaos Druids and everything. So I think that all of these updates have really made it viable. Now, what about this is something we haven't spoken about yet. What about the Grotesque Guardians? Is that something that you can even do on your account?
Unfortunately not, because that is a task only thing. And I mean, honestly, there really isn't much that they drop that would be useful for me. I guess getting a
Mm-hmm.
granite hammer would be really cool,
Mm-hmm.
but is it necessary? No. No, not by any means. I don't think at all that I'll be allowing myself to do that. Um Other than that, I think that's just about all that has shaped the content for Mauritania, but it's definitely way more playable than it has been, especially with the introduction of the Taste of Hope quest. It
Yeah.
got extra storyline. The Evandis Flail was introduced, and that can kill Firewatch. That was introduced. So I mean, there have just been a ton of stuff added uh, to to make the experience just worth playing, I suppose.
Yeah. So how did the Taste of Hope, aside from the Draken's Medallion, what did the Taste of Hope quest do for your account?
So with the Taste of Hope quest came the Evandis Flail, which means I now have access to Firewatch, which pretty much my absolute best in slot gear until I start upgrading to Barrows. And before that, the gear was much, much worse. There's also a way to grind adamant arrows from Firewatch, which are
Interesting.
pretty much the best arrows until I can get rune arrows from a different, by different means. But those are very, very important, which will be in a video eventually. And other than that, oh, also, the Taste of Hope, of course. The Evandis Flail allows you to do medium and hard treks. I mean, before you could do them, but you would encounter the Vampire Juvenate encounter, and it was so just incredibly slow because
Mm-hmm.
you had to either use like a silver sickle or just a terrible weapon. And the Evandis Flail made that doable, basically.
Interesting. Okay, so even though the medium and hard treks aren't that useful for you, it at least changed that up. And I think the other thing too that I remember from one of your latest episodes was the like infinite stash of pestle and mortars, right?
Right, the pestle and mortars. There's also an infinite stash of silver sickles, which was my only way to like make energy pots in the future. So there's both the pestle and mortar and the silver sickles are very very important.
Yeah, and that's great for you, obviously, as an Ultimate Iron Man, by the way, to free up those few inventory slots to do some other
Yep.
skilling and training in the future. Here's another trivial update to Mauritania that we can talk about, and I think you'll know more about this than I do. But again, I recall in the recent past you talking about a mysterious fishing net spawn that
Ah.
that showed up. Talk to me about what that is, where it came from, and how that impacted your account.
Right. So I did a bit of digging onto this, and I still have no idea where it came from, when it came, but I've narrowed it down to anywhere from December 11th to January 20th is somewhere in that area. It
Okay.
came in, and I was originally told that it might have come in through the update of Sleep by a moderator, but
Hmm.
that is definitely not true because I looked at some quest guides of Taste of Hope and I saw people running past exactly where it is,
Hmm.
and it was
It
not
wasn't
there.
there.
It's not
Okay.
on. Yeah, it's not in RS3 either. So the only explanation is that it was added recently. However,
Hmm.
ignoring that it's so mysterious, it is extremely good for my account.
Uh-huh.
Uh, because originally I was just going to stop Hunter at 27 because I can't catch swamp lizards, but now I can catch implings from 27 to 29, and then I can catch swamp lizards all the way to 99, which will unlock lucky implings, dragon
Right.
implings. I mean, yeah, so it's a very very huge update.
Yeah, and I mean, for many area locked accounts, implings are incredible,
Yep.
because obviously the variety of loot that comes with that. I, of course, as a underground, mostly Iron Man, don't have that luxury because there are no
Yeah, no
underground
Hunter
impling
training
spawns. Yeah,
feels
but
bad.
yeah, yeah, feels terrible. But so talk to me about what could be useful from implings.
So I think pretty much anything on the lucky impling drop table would be extremely useful. I mean, the we're talking about the impling drop table being various, but the clue scroll drop table is even more so. There's so much there. I could get okay, this is like a pipe dream basically, but the Obsidian Cape R, which would be a best in slot cape.
Wow.
Same stats as an Obsidian Cape if I
Hmm.
managed to get 99 Hunter and catch it from a lucky impling. Which fun fact, I did that on my main. I got an Obsidian Cape R from a
No
lucky impling on my
kidding.
main. Yeah, so I
Wow.
mean,
I wonder what
hey,
the odds of that would
very,
be.
very,
It's got
very
to be
rare. I
very
mean,
slim. Holy cow.
stupidly rare. I mean, usually people only get some kind of runes from that. So
Right, right.
other than that, I mean, we have access to the Dragon Impling drop table, which you've
Of
got
course.
things like Mystic Bottoms. You've got Alkables with the Dragon Longsword. I unfortunately can't use those because no Lost City, but
Right.
there's also nature implings. You've got seeds. I mean, it's just I don't know. Possibilities are endless, and probably the funniest one, which is like probably the most useful one, is the actual lowest tier that I can catch, and that's for the ball of wool because there's no way to get a ball of wool. And once I do that, I can make my own glory. I can make a
Hmm.
salve amulet. Will be great for the theater and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
very good stuff from implings.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy that just the most trivial items, people, just
Right.
just the
Yeah.
ball of wool from a baby impling is so important to you because you can finally
Yep.
string amulets, and the salve, of course, is going to be big for TOB and
Hmm.
all the other amulets as well. Wow. Okay, here's another question. It's a viewer question. I don't remember who asked the question. Again, apologies, but I love this question because I know how much it would impact my account, and I'm curious to see how it would impact yours. So, how would the lack of XP random events alter your account's trajectory?
Huh. That is a good question, actually. That would change so much. In fact, if XP randoms weren't a thing, I definitely would have gotten myself the Ecto file.
Right.
Because the whole reason why I had to lamp construction is because I didn't have a way to teleport back to Mauritania.
Hmm.
Didn't have a way to get out of my house, so I had to lamp my 5 construction. I have to lamp 27 hunter to get the ball of wool and to eventually train. I mean, I guess Theater of Blood would still be my end game goal. But I think the account would definitely look a lot different with the ecto file and no hunter training.
Yeah. So, would it still be feasible to
It
do
would
Theater of
definitely
Blood?
still be, yeah, yeah, absolutely. It would be a lot more. Well, I'd
Because
say, in
the
fact,
implings would lock you out of quite a bit of content, right? Especially if you get dragon implings for the glory and for the mystic pieces, and um, I feel like that would just lock you out of quite a bit of content. But
well, you'd think so, but in fact, I can make a glory by myself, and also the salve isn't the biggest deal. I mean, bloat would take a little while, but other than
mhm,
that, I guess it's definitely still feasible. In fact, you could argue that it might even be easier because I would have to have the ecto file,
mhm,
and that would help me out more. And I wouldn't need the ecto tokens in my slot.
right.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a lot to think about there. I feel like there are a lot of intricate stuff that I just don't know how exactly that would change. But
Right. I just love that question because I mean, for restricted accounts, it's almost kind of like our lifeblood is the
yeah,
XP random events.
yeah,
It's had a major impact on my account. Being able to lamp construction initially, I had to lamp 1 to 27, and that's allowed me, to have a gilded altar now underground to train prayer, and it's given me access to a larder, where I make scrambled eggs, which is my which is actually an item that you can make in the game, and it's my cooking meta to train all the way up to level 80 for sharks.
Yeah.
But yeah, just XP randoms in general are huge for Snowflake accounts. So I was just curious to see how that would affect you.
Kind of integral to some accounts, even. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even for other like stat restricted accounts, for skillers, for example,
Hmm.
historically they're known to lamp the Slayer skill.
Yep.
It doesn't really do much for them, but it
Yeah, but I mean,
they just seem so integral to
yeah.
so many different unique types of Iron Man in particular.
Hmm.
Um, if there was one item that you could bring into Mauritania outside of your restrictions, what would it be and why?
One item. Um. So the one item that I would probably put in from if I had any possible choice, would probably, might seem like a generic answer, but I mean the blowpipe.
Of
Probably. I
course.
mean, it's so broken. It would make Theater of Blood a lot easier. It would make just about everything a lot easier. I think it's overall probably like the best weapon in the game.
Right. Yeah.
Disputable, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, frankly, that would probably be my choice too. Just
Hmm.
because it is so broken. I'd like to see changes to the blowpipe made in the future. Now, I don't know if we'll actually ever see
Yeah.
that,
I
but
believe there is talk of it, but then again, there has been talk of it for several years.
yeah,
Um,
it seems like.
yeah.
And again, I love the development team. I love
Hmm.
how communicative they are with
Absolutely. Yeah.
the player base and how open and transparent they are. But there just seems to be this not so good trend of releasing game content that's not properly balanced and mulling it over for 1 to 4 years before
Yeah.
addressing it and properly balancing it. And you
Hmm.
know, it's just unfortunate to see because obviously that's not their initial intent, and they don't want to rush to make any drastic changes. But you know, I would just like to see them make resolve some of these issues a little bit quicker. Now, I think we've seen an uptick in that recently. For example, the Konar drop table with the release of Kebos.
Hmm.
I think that they made it a point to try and nip that in the bud and fix that as soon as they could.
Which is
But
great. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a step in the right direction.
Hmm.
Um, but that's part of the niceties about playing as Snowflake Iron Man is that a lot of that we don't have to worry about
Right.
on
Yeah.
a day-to-day basis because most
Hmm.
of it just doesn't affect us. Okay, let's move forward here into the end goals and achievements on swampletics. I know that obviously a lot of this is going to be kept under wraps because we don't want spoilers for the video series, of course. But one question I want to know: when do you predict you'll be ready to make your first serious attempt at Theater of Blood?
I think sometime in the summer here, probably towards like mid to end of the summer. So I want to say like July, August region
Really?
is when we'll probably see the first attempt. Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Honestly, that seems very soon to me.
It is
Um,
it is approaching. Time is
that
moving fast.
I was honestly expecting you to say sometime early 2020.
Mhm.
Because I didn't think that it would be possible for you to progress that fast to do TOB. Um, wow, that kind of makes
Full
me feel.
time forehead nowadays.
That's
So I
true.
mean,
Hey, yeah.
hey,
Speaking of
I
which,
think.
congratulations on full time, man. That's
Thank you,
huge.
thank you. Yeah, I
Um,
think it is possible. Honestly, yeah.
wow, that makes me feel bad at the game because I've been playing Caveman for almost 2 years now, and I haven't even gotten to raids 1 yet. Um,
Well, I mean,
so
you I feel like your goals probably take a little longer than mine. I feel,
do you think so?
since
Really? I
I mean
mean,
you have things like 93. Okay, never mind. I do have 85,
yeah. I
but I mean
mean,
stuff like that. Um, your gear is definitely going to be better than mine. I want to say.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely on the offensive side of things, you're
yeah,
definitely
for
going to have a
sure.
ton more better gear than me.
Yeah. Now, I guess for me personally, I have first of all, I have more gear options than you do in Mauritania.
Mhm.
But for me, my idea with going into raids is that I want to be as best equipped as possible to not be
Right.
a complete anchor, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
um,
Completely
so,
understand.
yeah, so I could have gone into raids probably 6 months ago, but I would have been severely handicapped. Probably wouldn't have been the most fun, especially for
Right.
people who I'm raiding with, because I've never raided before. Chambers
Hmm.
of Zarek came out just a couple months before I made Caveman. So I've never raided in my entire life as of this podcast. So I'm not going to be soloing anytime soon when I start. So
Right.
therefore,
Yeah.
I would like my rating experience with whoever is going to be rating with me to not be just a carrying me experience.
Yeah. That is
Um,
completely understandable and commendable. 100%.
well, thank you. So okay, so wow, July or August for your
Yeah.
first theater attempts. Okay. Um,
I
viewer
feel like
question.
as
Go ahead.
soon as like July or August comes around, people are gonna be like, "Dude, where's the Theater of Blood?" It turns out, maybe it's a bit later, but anyway,
Right.
that's my prediction as of this podcast currently.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Great. I think it's
yeah.
great to qualify that statement and
Hmm.
manage expectations. Under promise, over deliver.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. We don't want July 2019 to turn into the new winter 2017 meme.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a viewer question. Kiwi Dude 4 asks, "What big goals do you have for your account that aren't Barrows or Theater of Blood related?"
So I've thought about this a little bit, right? Because I expect swampletics to easily, like with this end game goal I've made, I expect it to last me the rest of 2019.
Mhm.
Just focusing on Barrows, Theater of Blood, stuff like that. I have played around with the idea of maxing. I
You're
don't.
joking.
No, no, no. I'm not joking at
Oh
all.
my goodness.
I've played around with it. I mean, you've got those 7 skills from temple trekking that can be maxed in
Right.
about, I want to say 2,000 hours.
Mhm.
And then the rest of it is kind of where the problem comes because I mean you've got herb lore, you've
Right.
got smithing,
Right.
farming would be a nightmare. So there's a couple things there. I can't train rune crafting, but I've toyed around with it. It is a possibility, but other than that, I have not thought of anything else. I don't really know what there is to do after that big end game goal is done. I can go for maybe some clue juggling or try to get some uniques from there. Try to complete elite clues. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. I haven't thought too far ahead on that.
Okay, so it seems like most of your obvious big end goals are PVM oriented.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And that's completely fair. Um Man, I can't believe that you're actually toying with the idea of trying to max that account. That is
It
that
could
is
be
wild to me.
could be interesting.
I mean, that would certainly give you some content for a while.
Yep.
Um
Yep. I'd be
but
good for quite a long time. Yeah.
wow. Okay, I think I know a partial answer to this already, but talk to me about any possible like ridiculously slim RNG moments that you depend on for critical milestones. Is there any gear that would be like insanely ridiculous RNG that would be useful to you?
Um. Should we exclude the theater of blood from this? Do you think? Because I mean, that's
Right. Yeah. I mean that's
yeah.
obviously all RNG based. So
Right.
outside of the theater,
Mhm.
what kind of like ridiculously slim RNG is there anything? I mean, obviously there's tons of
So
dead content out there.
right, I think probably the biggest thing is I have to rely on a rare drop table dragonstone in order to make a glory
Right.
and a combat bracelet, which would be my two best in slots. So that would, yeah, I think getting two dragonstones would probably be pretty difficult. We're probably looking at thousands and thousands of kills
Yeah.
on a rare drop table monster.
Is there
So
any
that's
particular
probably it.
monster in Mauritania that has a greater chance of landing on the rare drop table?
I don't know if it's a greater chance on my main ultimate. I got I believe like 3 or 4 dragon stones in like 15,000 necreal kill count or something. So I might be
Okay.
camping necreals. I
Hmm.
don't completely know how the access to the rare drop table works with different monsters. I haven't really looked
Hmm.
into it. But
Okay.
as far as I know,
Interesting.
necreals drop them. So maybe necreals.
Yeah. And so I assume by saying that you think that grind will preclude, I guess 93 Hunter for bare hand dragon implings for the glory.
I think so, because I think this one of the big things for Theater of Blood is, you really need high melee stats. It's very, very, critical to being able to contribute and all that. And
Yeah.
obviously, I don't want to dedicate like one episode to grinding experiments for 500 hours. So I
Why not?
think
That sounds
I'd
like great
rather.
content.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely. But yeah, I think definitely getting it through other means, such as going for a dragon stone or trying to clue juggle. I think getting that
Sure.
combat stuff done uh, while going for gear is probably the best way to do it. So I
Yeah, that makes
think
a lot
that
of
is
sense.
probably yeah. And once again with the dragon implings, oh, I guess they do drop dragon stones as well, don't they?
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I need a dragon stone for a combat bracelet rather than just the glory drop. But yeah, they do also have dragon stones. But the dragon stones are rare, and then also finding a dragon impling will also probably be pretty damn rare.
Right, of course. Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
makes sense though to go more of the melee route and perhaps
Hmm.
grind neck reels and get the combat stats that you need for theater rather than going the non-combat route via hunter.
Yep.
Because plus
Yeah.
you have to lamp hunter to 27 to start anyway.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah, and that will take a while. So.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
In my experience, I did 1 to 27 construction the last part of last year, and I think it took me about 10 months. Um,
Yeah, that is exactly what I predicted as well for mine.
yeah,
Which,
so that is no
yeah,
small amount of time, and what else you could
definitely.
accomplish in that amount of time. And then of
Mhm.
course, that's just getting to
Also grinding.
27.
Yeah. Yeah,
Then you
exactly.
have to get to 93 to barehand catch, and that's
Then we've got to
several
catch
hundred
it to
hours of swamp lizards
29.
probably.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely understandable. What item or perhaps level on your account right now are you the proudest of?
the proudest of.
Like I
Oh, I'd
said, it could be a
probably.
level, it could be a rare drop, it could be a
Ooh,
boss
okay.
fight or a quest completion. What's the proudest moment so far?
I think probably beating Rannis Draken, I'd say. That was one of my favorite moments of all time because I went in there on a literal practice run
Hmm.
and just got the most incredible RNG of all time. And it's just I don't know. That was awesome to me. So I'm very glad that that happened.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say. I mean, that was probably the most hyped I've ever been for a RuneScape YouTube video, maybe of all time.
It
It's
was
like a
awesome. I loved
heavyweight
it.
boxing match, like world title,
Mhm.
and swampletics comes out on top. Spoiler alert.
Right, yeah.
But
The underdog victory, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know I would love to, of course, speak more about your end goals and achievements and what you plan on doing in the latter part of your time on Swampletics, but I know that all of that is top secret because, of course, we don't
Right,
want
yeah.
any spoilers for the YouTube series.
Mhm.
Um, but on that topic, I think that's going to segue us perfectly into one of the final parts of the podcast today, which is just about content creation in general and the community, the Snowflake community, and how it's grown.
Mhm.
So, on the topic of keeping things under wraps for the future of your account, that's something that is in juxtaposition to the way I approach my account. And I'm really
Right,
interested
yeah.
to know about your thoughts behind this, because for me, um, I primarily stream on Twitch, and then I have my YouTube content on the side to supplement what I'm doing on the live streams. But for
Mhm.
you, there's an obvious focus on the YouTube content creation side of things, and you make it a big point to not or to try and preserve as many spoilers as possible. So talk to me about your thought process behind that.
I think the way to sum this up is I was streaming one day and someone came in and they were like it kind of seems like you have an epiphany in every single Swampletics video. And I think the reason for that is because I don't reveal at all what I'm going to be doing in this episode or the next episode or in the next week or anything. I think keeping that surprise element is so important to the entertainment of a series, although you could definitely make it entertaining, laying all your goals out. But I think the surprise factor is definitely what keeps a lot of people hooked. And I try to make every episode kind of like just, hey, I found this really obscure thing and it's going to be awesome. And, no one was expecting that because no one had any idea that I was, even doing it. That's why every single episode, I just introduce the episode with, hey, this is what we're gonna be doing this episode, and this is what I want at the end of it. And I'm kind of ranting off here, but the basic premise is that I don't stream the account because I really value the whole surprise element of the series.
I get that 100%. Do you think that that has been one of the big factors in the popularity of the series?
I'd say so. I think it's definitely got a big part. Um, Other than that, I just one thing that I've really liked doing in the past couple weeks with these videos is having goal oriented videos where I could probably split up all my videos and I could probably have like 20 episodes out at this point, but every single video has one goal to it. And I think that is what people really enjoy seeing is like, this is what this video is going to be about. And I want to see how he does this. So I think that is kind of, I'd say that's probably the biggest part of the success factor is the goal oriented progress rather than, hey guys, welcome back to another episode where today we're gonna get like one Slayer level, and then I'm gonna go do some Barrows and Wintertod. Like every episode has a goal and a process.
I think you nailed that on the head. Now, even you just saying that hits home a little bit for me because in the past, for me in particular, I've felt that way about my own videos, and obviously I see that in other content creators as well. That there's really no overarching theme or like goal for a
Hmm.
video. That they just kind of wait till X amount of time has elapsed, and then whatever they've
The
accomplished.
10-minute mark.
Right? Yeah. The 10-minute, 4-second videos.
Right.
Then they get posted. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, and there are people that execute
Mhm.
that style very well.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I think that what you have done with swampletics in the last few months is absolutely game changing and is raised the bar higher than it's ever been before. Not to talk you up too much, of course,
Yeah,
but
okay, we got to
but
balance out the ego, but
right, yeah, of
yeah,
course,
I
gotta stay
completely
humble.
understand. Right,
but
right.
but seriously, I applaud you so much for what you've done with the progress video meta. Um, and again, just speaking out of my own personal experience, I found it absolutely fascinating that you could take an entire progress video and just make it about doing your bridge jumping agility training. And
Yep.
that was earth shattering to me, and I think to the community as a whole, because you prove that it's not necessarily just about the content, but it's about the delivery.
Hmm.
And that for me was an absolute game changer because I always felt obligated to deliver like as much just content and levels and everything as possible in a single video. But
Right.
it doesn't necessarily have to be about that because again, as you said, if there's no real point to any of it,
Hmm.
it's all just kind of it's all kind of homogenous. But you
Exactly.
have like you have really started this new trend in being able to uh, basically make each episode its own individual package. So you lay it
Exactly.
out right
Yeah.
from the beginning and say, this is what I want to get to. This is what I've discovered along the way that helps me get there. And then at the end of the episode, generally you
The
reach that
payoff.
goal.
Yep.
Right. Um, it's yeah. So obviously you are doing remarkably well. Um, did you anticipate the series performing this well before you released the first episode?
Absolutely not. No. I did try something different that I tried with these videos as well because along with that, I've been doing the whole like end goal thing for a little while. Maybe not to the extent that I have, but I mean, I made a video out of like 300 hours of straight rune crafting,
Sure.
or stuff like that. But what I really wanted to do with the swampletics series is make it appeal to a different audience. So I tried to explain everything so that someone who has barely played the game can understand and get on board with this series. And what I've seen a lot in the feedback is that, hey, I haven't played this game in like 13 years, but I really enjoy this series because of your explanation. And yeah, maybe some players who have played all this time and know all this stuff, they're probably, maybe some people get annoyed with it. They're like, yeah, I know all this stuff. But, some people haven't played that long. And I just wanted to make it appeal to every single type of audience. And I do think that that also contributes to the success of it because even my friend, like, he showed it to his roommate, and his roommate is completely uninterested in the game, but yet he enjoys the series. So I think I've done something really well with that whole explanation and catering to people who haven't really played the game.
Yeah. And what I find interesting about that point in particular is that you can make something even as niche as a Mauritania locked Ultimate Iron Man accessible to the general RuneScape population,
Hmm.
which I didn't think was really feasible before.
Yeah, me
Um,
neither.
and it seems like you've really been able to seriously master the craft of targeting a specific audience, which is,
Hmm.
again, like as you said, it might seem a little redundant in some of your videos, some of the explanation, because for we RuneScape veterans who have been
Right.
playing the game for over a decade might know some of this information, but just that explaining the obvious to people, I think is a really really attractive point in your series that has obviously made it blow up.
Hmm.
How have you been handling the success this far?
Uh, I'm still just kind of soaking it in, man. I don't really know. It all just happened so insanely suddenly, but I mean, it's fantastic. Having this many people excited over a thing I make is incredible. And especially because I mean, I love the game mode so much. Well, yeah, the game and the game mode and the whole Snowflake idea. I'm just really glad that it's shined this kind of spotlight on this kind of gameplay, and that even so, yeah, like you said, something as niche as this can be brought into mainstream even is incredible to me, because when I started this playing an Ultimate Ironman, I was like, oh wow, maybe there's going to be like 200, 300 people that are interested in this content.
Mhm.
But to now be, showing this to even like casual RuneScape players is great.
Frankly, the growth that you have seen in the last 60 days, I think is unprecedented in the old school RuneScape community. I listened to another podcast that you were on recently with Rakasi, Rice Cup, and Minty,
Hmm.
and those guys have been content creators in the community for a long time. And I heard them speak about how even though they've been in this community for a long time, your growth in the last 30 to 60 days has been unmatched by anyone, like maybe ever in old
Yeah,
school
it's
RuneScape history. I mean,
it's crazy, man.
how much growth are we talking about here in the last 60 days?
In the last 60 days, we're probably looking at like 85,000 subscribers on YouTube,
That
something
is,
like that.
that is just mind blowing,
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
mind blowing. Now, remind me, how long have you been a content creator? How long have you been publishing videos on your YouTube channel?
In about 2 months, it's going to be, yeah, in a little over 2 months, it's gonna be 3 years.
Okay. And I mean, before you even started swampletics, you had already made a name for yourself with your Ultimate Iron Man
Mhm.
series, and you already had a pretty, large following and channel. But to have developed that and to do it very well across almost, 2.5 years, and then to have this sudden explosion of growth in the last
Yeah.
60 days is it's it's
Yeah, it is
it's
something
it's
else, man.
setting it's setting the bar extremely high. And
Mhm.
I'm honestly just very, very humbled to have you in the community, to
Oh.
have other people like Verf in the community as well. Because I think one
Mhm.
thing that I think that collectively snowflakes are doing on the whole for the community is just raising the bar of content. Um, I don't know how you feel about this personally, but I feel like YouTube content, um, specifically from like in the 2016 2017 range, was a little stale across the board.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we are kind of in the golden age at the moment, is what I've heard a lot of people refer to it as. Like, everyone's quality, everyone's presentation is getting better. There are creative ideas coming, and I don't know. I think the improvement has been incredible.
Yeah, the bar has certainly been raised, and it's almost a little. I mean, it's almost a little counterintuitive because you'd think the longer the game goes on, especially without the introduction of any like official modes. Because obviously we
Hmm.
had Ironman and Ultimate in 2014. We had Hardcore Ironman, I think, in the fall of 2016.
Yep.
So you would think that over time the content would become stale across the board and less interesting. But for us to have reached this new, golden age, as you said, some people are calling it,
Hmm.
is fascinating. For an 18-year-old MMORPG, um, that's just part of the
Yeah.
charm that I love about this game.
Yeah, exactly. After all this time, there's still ways to make it fresh and interesting. Like that is something that I don't think any other game can really say for itself, even.
Not that I know of. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there are other games that have been out for just as
Right.
long, but I don't think that they have really the variety or freshness of content that we have in our community.
Hmm.
How do you keep your content fresh and your viewers engaged? And how do you keep viewers interested even though your content in particular for you might get stale? So for example, you have hundreds of hours of temple trekking on your hands. How do you keep that fresh for yourself, and how do you keep it fresh for your viewers?
So for myself, kind of, it's kind of difficult because I just purely run off the satisfaction of making the account better, and also I have all this motivation from YouTube and Twitch and whatever else, right?
Hmm.
So for me, I've never really had a problem with doing that kind of stuff. I'm completely fine with grinding the temple trekking for this many hours if it means, some big things for the account. For the videos, it is a completely different beast,
Hmm.
because, like I said, I've done a video on 300 hours of rune crafting before, and that was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done to make a video interesting. And
Yeah.
I still don't really know how I did it, but it was one of my like most well received videos, and I think people are very interested in these kind of mind numbing grinds in condensed into these like 15-20 minute videos. And I
Why
think as long as
I was gonna say, why do you think that is? Why do you think people are so intrigued by this?
I think people just kind of live vicariously through it. I mean, that's what I've seen in all of my comment sections when I put a ton of hours into something, whether it be my construction while maxing or my rune crafting. People just really love to see the stuff that they could not be bothered to do. And I think that definitely has an effect. I think there's definitely still ways to make it entertaining, but I think as long as you can do it, first of all, and as long as you're enthusiastic and you're positive and like you're whatchamacallit, if you're passionate about the account is what I was really trying to get there, then it will show. And I think, yeah, just doing those grinds while you're passionate about them, I think that's pretty much how it's done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head once again about people living vicariously through your content and other people's content. I have the same theory that people enjoy watching this kind of content and other kind of content. For example, PvP.
Hmm. Yeah.
Deadman mode has been out for several years now, and some people wonder why. But again, I think it proves to continuously be as popular as it is because people live vicariously through that content because they themselves either aren't good enough or aren't interested enough or
Right.
invested enough to do
Yeah.
it themselves. Um, and so I think that's why, obviously, we have a bunch of big PvP RuneScape YouTubers in the community, like Torvesta, Framed, Bodhi when he was in the PvP scene and his one man army series.
Hmm.
These are some of the most successful guys in the scene because they're doing content that most people don't interact with, and so they're living vicariously through them. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
think this is the next frontier of that. That we're figuring out a new era of emergent gameplay in the game that's nearly 2 decades old, and people can't most people just can't imagine doing some of these grinds themselves, and so they live vicariously through swampletics, my Mauritania locked ultimate ironman,
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in order in
Exactly.
order in order to get that experience. But
Mhm.
some people are interested enough to hop in to the community, the Snowflake community themselves. So talk to me, what are your thoughts on the growth of the Snowflake Ironman community in the last 6 months?
So I think that even though some people are kind of taking it to ridiculous extents, I think it's such an attractive thing to watch. I mean, I love how much the community has grown. One of my favorite Snowflake accounts currently is this one chunk man, which
Ah,
you know,
yes, One Chunk
yeah,
Man. He's all the
came out of the
rage.
blue,
Hmm.
but my God, can he make a 90-minute video entertaining, which is something I've never seen before. I mean, a 90-minute progress video
Yeah, that is very
twice
meta
now,
changing.
and people are watching this and they're enjoying it. Most people are watching most of it, and that's fantastic. I think this is the only type of content that you could really do that with and get away with it, and make it interesting. I think I'm so invested into other people's grinds, I guess, seeing them break the possibilities.
Yeah, it's truly wild. And one of the things that I really love about One Chunk Man, another person who I would love to have on this podcast in the future, if you're listening, by the way, um, it's so obvious what he's doing. If you're not familiar with his series,
Mhm.
basically he's playing the game one quote unquote chunk at a time, which is basically one rendered 64 by 64 map square in the game. And he sets himself goals for each chunk. So, for example, the first chunk of the game is Lumbridge, basically, and he sets himself a goal in that chunk. And then once he completes said goal, then he moves on to the next adjacent chunk that he's allowed to pick. So he's literally doing the game like one rendered map chunk at a time. And it's so just like blatantly obvious. Like, that is such a
Yeah.
great, unique way to play the game. And it's just been staring everyone in the face because it's just something that you don't even think about on a
Hmm.
day-to-day basis playing the game. But he's turned it into this really compelling series, and on top of that, completely changing the meta of, again, the progress video structure. Most progress videos, I
Hmm.
would say, aim for the ballpark of like 10 to 17 minutes.
Hmm. Yep.
His two progress videos that he's released so far as of this video are like 90-minute feature-length films.
It's
but
crazy. Yeah.
people love it, and it just makes me so excited for the future of this community.
Hmm.
Um, One thing that does sort of concern me, though, both just as a player and also as a content creator, is the seeming super saturation of the community right now.
That
Do you have
yeah.
any thoughts on that?
I was gonna touch on that because I don't have a problem with it if the ideas are done well. I
Hmm.
think if the presentation is there, if the quality is there, and people are genuinely passionate about it, then I don't see a problem with it. But I think the like you said, the saturation of it currently is definitely probably taking away some people's interest of it before they even get into it. Like some people are probably writing it off completely, uh, watching these series because they see these accounts everywhere and they're like, well, you're the same as this other guy. And I don't know. I definitely think it used to be like this super niche, incredible thing to be a part of. It's slowly getting saturated, but I think if everything is done well, I think it could be a net positive.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's a bit of a double-edged sword that you know, we colloquially call ourselves snowflakes, which again, to my knowledge, the etymology of that stemmed from me calling myself a snowflake in Caveman, kind of ironically with self-deprecating humor. But now it's come to be known as just like this unique way of playing an Iron Man
Hmm.
in particular in the game. And I think it comes at a trade-off because on the one hand, people are rediscovering the game and falling in love with it all over again. I'm sure you have plenty of people who reach out to you and say, "Hey, you inspired me, to play the game again after seeing your
Hmm.
series." So it's bringing people back to the game. It's getting them involved and having them fall in love with the game all over again. But then on the
Hmm.
other hand, this super saturation of content we've seen lately um, is I think possibly turning away some people because it's almost like there are so many snowflakes now that it almost seems like 2019 is
Yeah.
going like the making a Snowflake Ironman account is going to be like the norm, and all of like the
Mhm.
normal main accounts are going to be the new Snowflakes.
Right.
um,
It's doing a complete 180 basically. I
yeah,
really hope it doesn't get to that point because I think there's really something special about it all at the moment, especially if a series is done well. But I mean, what can you do? People are going to do what they want,
yeah.
and you know,
Yeah,
about
I,
all I
I
can
I think
say.
it's a phase, and as you said earlier, as long
Hmm.
as it's done well and as long as they're passionate about it, I don't see any problem with it. One
Hmm.
thing that I've noticed, just having been in the community and doing this myself for almost 2 years now, is that a lot of people start up their special Snowflake accounts, get into it a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then they fall away from it, and you never hear from them again.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, I think a reason for that is because when you see all of these people posting progress logs and progress videos and theory crafting, you don't see the ugly side of it. You only see the
Hmm.
highlights and all the big levels and the
Exactly.
achievements. What you don't see are the hundreds and hundreds of hours of grinds and boring, just grindy tediousness that is old school RuneScape. And
Yep.
especially limiting yourself beyond just playing, whatever brand of Iron Man. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that eventually, once this kind of snowflake explosion reaches its peak, I do think that we'll see a pretty significant drop off. Is sort of my prediction, because either one, people are just going to discover that this grind is ridiculous and they can't stick with it, or two, just because the market for this content is so saturated, I feel like it'll probably end up demotivating some people from continuing. Because I feel like there's a bit of an air of bandwagoning happening right now. Do you get that same
Definitely.
vibe?
Yeah, it's definitely just a fad thing currently, and I think we will see in a couple months everyone's true colors, or if it's around to stay. Uh, yeah, I guess time will tell.
Yeah, I think time will tell, certainly. And obviously, that's not to discourage anyone from joining the community, because hey, the whole point of this is falling in love with the game all over again. As I
Hmm.
like to say, once you find RuneScape, you are here forever, so you might as well find a way to enjoy it. um, and just as long as you
Very
enjoy
good
playing,
motto.
thank you. But as long as you just find a way to enjoy the game, I say, and I guess I can't be the best person to vouch for this, that you don't have to create content. You don't have to try and get people involved in what you're doing as long as you're enjoying it. Um, and I think that for those people who might happen to be in the community for the wrong reasons, just trying to ride a wave to get some clicks and views, I think that will fall away over time. Um, for the people out there who are definitely in this to take it seriously and to create some genuinely good, fun, interesting, unique content, what advice would you have for up and coming content creators?
Hmm. I'd say probably the one thing is make sure that you pick an account that you seriously enjoy. Pick an area that you will personally have fun with and not something that would be interesting for just the content, I suppose is what I'm getting at here. Because I mean, although something like a what Karamja only actually mentioned in the last podcast, a no consumable uh Iron Man, that might sound pretty sick for like video content, but if you're not going to enjoy it, then don't do that. Otherwise, I'd say try to definitely cut down, just go with as little exceptions as possible. You will thank yourself later, and just have fun with it. Just have fun with it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Do something that you're going to genuinely enjoy. Uh, I can't speak for this myself because you guys know I'm an exception only Iron Man, but I would say generally speaking, it is best to go with as few exceptions as possible because first of all, it's going to make your life easier. And second of all, it's going to make it easy if you are trying to produce content. It's going to make it easier for people to wrap their heads around and for them to follow. But yeah,
I
just
think
have fun with it.
one thing to say here is Snowflake Iron Men are like jokes. If you need to explain it, it's not going to be that funny. So
That is perfect. Well said.
pick something that you won't have to explain to literally everyone.
Yeah, and again, the more exceptions you have, the more explaining you're going to have to do.
Hmm.
And Yeah, sometimes I kind of feel like my live streams and my YouTube comment section on my videos are literally just like question and answer sessions. Um, yeah, take one from me who's been doing this for a while. Yeah, that is say that
Right.
again because I really like that.
Snowflake Ironmen are like jokes. If you have to explain it, it's not going to be that funny.
Oh man, I love that. It makes so much sense. Um, yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that is wonderful advice. Um, any other closing comments from you on your end?
Um, I don't think so. Subscribe to Caveman only.
Oh my
That's
God,
that's
please don't.
I'm expecting my PayPal payment for the advertising. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yes, that's excellent. Yeah.
No, I really I don't think I have anything else.
Okay. What's the best way for people to reach you?
Um, my probably my Twitter or my Twitch. Settled RS on Twitter and just settled on Twitch.
Okay, great. Going forward with your swampletics account, do you plan on streaming that account much in the future?
Um, I do eventually, probably once I start to hit this temple trekking grind, because like I touched on earlier with the whole keeping spoilers away. The temple trekking grind, there's really not going to be much to spoil, so I'd like to stream it at that point. But before that, probably just want to keep it YouTube only.
Sure, great. And obviously, if you're not familiar, settled RS swampletics. This guy's the man. If you don't know swampletics in 2019, do you really play RuneScape? I'm not sure. But hey, anyway, settled. Thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your busy day and schedule to do this interview. And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on today. It was a very enjoyable conversation. So, uh, yeah, thank you for this. And I guess until the next episode of the Snowflake Spotlight.
Nice. Uh,
Epic
yeah. I
outro.
mean, that's all right. Yeah. Well, I can touch that up later. I hope those of you listening at home have enjoyed this rendition of the Snowflake Spotlight. On the next podcast, I'll be interviewing the original gamer who brought us area restricted Iron Man gameplay, Mr. Wildependant, and his unofficial wilderness only Iron Man from way back in 2014. Post your questions you may have for Wildependant below in the comments, and you may just have your question answered on the next episode. If you need more Snowflake Iron Man content in your life and can't wait for the next episode, be sure to check out our subreddit, Our Unique Iron Men, the central hub for all things Snowflake Iron Man related. I'll have a link for you below in the description. The Snowflake Spotlight is a podcast series hosted by me, Caveman only, right here on my YouTube channel every other Friday. I want to give a special thank you to Settled for taking time out of his very busy YouTube King schedule for this interview, to IG Designs for his background artwork, to you, the listener, for your support in making it this far, and once again, to OSRS bestinslot.com for sponsoring this podcast. Again, this platform is a really useful tool to have in your online arsenal, especially those of you who are new to endgame PVM like me. On top of just showing what gear is best in slot for whatever attack style, the part I find most useful is the bossing tab with the different gear breakdowns based on your budget. Obviously for me, the one bill raids gear tribrid setup isn't really ideal, which is what I see a lot of other pros raiding with on Twitch. So on this site here, I can check out the cheaper setups that will be more similar to what I expect to bring to raids for me. There are also other links on the website to other resources like Sync's in-depth solo raids guide and the We Do Raids Discord server. I wouldn't have accepted this sponsorship to say all this sellout-y stuff if I didn't have full faith in this website and this guy's one-man operation. So check below the video here for a link to the site and see for yourself how useful this can be for you. Again, the site is osrsbestinslot.com, or just Google anything related to RuneScape and gear and you can find it that way too. And end paid advertisement here. Anyway, thank you again for listening. I'll see you next time.